It's Tetris Blast without the Tetris. Or the portability. Not exactly inspiring, is it? Released in 1993 for the Super Famicom from Bulletproof Software, Super Bombliss is the 16-bit equivalent of the game that graced Game Boy and would eventually be localized under the more marketable name Tetris Blast. Super Bombliss on Super Famicom, on the other hand, stayed in the land of the rising sun along with its other BPS Tetris contemporaries, a couple of which would feature Bombliss as a side game of sorts, those being Tetris 2 plus Bombliss for Famicom, and also Super Tetris 2 plus Bombliss for Super Famicom. Yeah, there's also the other one, but that's just the same game, so... Anywho, so they gave Bombliss the solo treatment, and that stayed a Japanese exclusive until the recent Tetris Forever compilation became a thing, which is what's being played here, obviously. And now that Super Bombliss was a solo act, what exactly did this new version offer that you couldn't get in previous outings of Bombliss when it was paired up with Tetris? What made this version different from what came before?
Nothing! Absolutely nothing!
Oh, come on, that's not exactly entirely true. You've got a versus computer mode if you want to challenge the computer. The uber cheap computer that's always going to be a better player than you, that's something you didn't have before. Well, I tried. So the general premise of Super Bombliss, for those unfamiliar, is that you're aiming to clear the well of everything contained within. You begin with an arrangement of bombs and blocks contained within the well, and you use various falling pieces, whether it be your traditional Chatromino pieces or your Chinese brick game segments that they toss in at later levels to throw you off, to form lines and such. Forming lines of blocks on their own does nothing, but if those lines contain bombs, those bombs will explode and clear away any blocks within its narrow blast radius. The more lines you fill, the wider the blast radius of each bomb, and whatever bombs get caught within a blast will also explode, causing a chain reaction that will clear away a lot of garbage, which is generally what you want to aim for. Now, if you position 4 bombs together in a square, they'll merge together to form a super bomb.
The super bomb. The super bomb.
Super bomb explosions have the biggest blast yield, and in the right position can clear away any minor mess you have left over. But super bombs are useful for triggering other bombs in its wake, which can be very helpful in clearing stuff out. The biggest thing is learning how bombs work in this game, and it's something that takes a little getting used to at first, but once you get the hang of how things work, Super Bombliss starts to shine a little. Super Bombliss boasts 3 single-player modes of play as well as a 2-player versus mode. You've got contests which tasks you with a series of 100 puzzles to solve with as few moves as possible, with any remaining moves added to your score. There's puzzle mode, which gives you boards to clear but with specific pieces given to you, and unlike puzzle mode in other Bombliss games, there's no transitions between puzzles. You clear a puzzle, you get a quick congratulations, you move on to the next puzzle. Nice and smooth. And finally, there's the aforementioned versus computer mode, where you and one of 8 computer opponents duel it out, clearing bombs and filling your opponent's well with garbage. It's loads of fun when played with a second player, not so much with a CPU. Well, at least it's not that weird versus mode in the Game Boy version where you have to kill a bouncing gimmick or something, though to be fair, that's at least something unique. Control is typical Tetris fare for the time. Move your pieces with a D-pad, pushing down for a faster descent, and 2 rotate buttons. All of these work just fine, though as is typical with most of these Super Famicom BPS Tetris games, the actual movement feels a bit slippery. It's kind of hard to explain, but there's a certain looseness in the movement of your pieces here where they move a little too fast to the left or right or whatever the case may be, but again, that's something you get used to after a while, or maybe not, it depends. If you pause the game and press select, you'll cycle through the game's different music tracks that they assign to each mode. Nothing really special. Super Bombliss offers a fun set of puzzles for the most part. It's a unique spin on the Tetris formula, and once you get the hang of its mechanics, there's some fun to be had. But at the same time though, is there anything here that you couldn't already get in the previous Super Tetris 2 plus Bombliss release? And honestly, I'd have to say, no. Super Bombliss boasts a clean enough presentation. You've got some varied backgrounds that pop up for different play modes and levels, the blocks have a nice clean look to them, and the explosions are now translucent and colorful. I do find that the larger explosions causes the game to lag quite a bit, though I'd like to think that's an issue with the emulation on the compilation side of things, because the Super Famicom side tends to be finicky in that regard, but even so, it is a bit odd that the newest iteration of the game would have this lagging issue while the older games can have big explosions without so much as a chug. Kinda weird. Also weird is the lack of intermissions after every few levels cleared in contest, something you had on Game Boy but not here. I don't know whether I should call it funny or sad, but it's something that I noticed. It is a pleasant sounding game with a couple catchy upbeat tracks that play for the different modes, but you could pause the game again and press select to cycle through the tracks if you want to listen to something else or nothing at all. Sound effects are simplistic but adequate, and the explosions sound fine enough, I suppose. Overall, Super Bombliss on Super Famicom is a fine enough game and a perfectly adequate iteration of the Tetris variant, but is no different from prior iterations to justify its existence. It has a unique set of puzzles as well as a new versus computer mode that will break your soul, but that's about all it has going for it. Still, if you enjoy Bombliss/Tetris Blast and you want more of that, then Super Bombliss will more than suffice, otherwise there's nothing here that you haven't seen before in other versions of the game. That said, if there is any consolation to be had here, I'd much rather have more Bombliss than Tetris.